So first up on the show is Alan Bayer, president of the Who Am I Answer, who specializes in teaching people their talents, advantages, gifts, and strengths. Alan, welcome to the show.
Thank you again.
So I think this is a good segue, whether it be from the Philippines, from America, knowing your strengths and the value that you bring to a role is humongous in building it, especially in business. If you're going to build a business, if you read a lot of business books, they start having commonalities. And one of those commonalities is you need to know what your strength in the business is. As a business owner, what do you bring as a value? So Alan, tell us a little bit about what it is that you do.
I go into businesses and with assessments that I'm certified in, Myers-Briggs, Clifton Strengths, you might have heard some of these, Colby and Fascinate, is you take these assessments and it tells you what your strengths are. And it also tells you what I really like is what your weaknesses are that we were talking about, humbling. And so what a lot of people do is, even in school, all this is that they focus on weaknesses. So here, I'm going to do a little test. And for those that are listening to the radio, here, I'm going to give everybody a pen. And what I want you to turn the paper over. Here you go. Here you go. So write with your dominant hand if you are right-handed. So sign your name, just how you'd normally do, like on a check or a check. Make it out to Alan. $1,000 would be fine. Now switch hands to your not dominant hand. Now sign your name.
Jeez.
And we'll take a moment like here. I'll tell you a little story because it'll take you a while.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh, pretty. So how did that feel?
Awkward and a little bit
uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable, yeah.
A little embarrassing and how ugly that is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how's it look? Does it look like your original?
Nope.
No.
Could you do it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you can, and that's what a lot of people do, is they do their weaknesses. It's awkward. They don't get it done as well. Like you said, you hired an assistant. So you were awkward at it, whereas somebody else, they rip it out like that in, a third, a quarter, half the time. And so that's what I show when I go into teams. When they're going through the assessments, is they show their talents, advantages, gifts, and strengths. So let me, this I pulled up, is Gallup does a survey. This is 67,000 people that Gallup surveyed. About 32% of them are fully engaged in their work. 32%. That's 1/3. That means that 2/3 are either not engaged, fully disengaged, or they're somewhat engaged. And so if you could get your whole team up and engage, how do you do that? Well, the top 5 answers here are clarity of expectations. This is, out of the 67,000. Connection to the mission or purpose of the company. People want to be connected with that. But the next 3 are where I focus. Opportunities to learn and grow. Opportunities to do what employees do best, and then feeling cared about at work. Okay, so and it's okay to laugh. I joke around a lot. And so how can they feel like you care about them? Well, if you're investing in them, going here, I want to show you what your talents, advantages, gifts, and strengths are. So let me show you a little bit about that. With one of them, Colby, is there's Fact Finder. Now, there's on a scale to 1 to 10. On a 10, the Fact Finder is somebody that does research on the internet, and they just love it, and they just dig it all up. Me, it puts me to sleep. I'm on the other end of the scale. I just want the Cliff Notes. Okay. And so someone that I'm talking to that just loves to do all that research, is like, great, let me give it to you because that's not what I'm good at. Another one, I won't go through all of them, but the next one is follow through. They love procedures. They go into places and they go, oh, it's disorganized, and they love to organize, clean up. Like, I don't know if you watch Big Bang Theory, Sheldon loved going into the closet and organizing the whole closet. He was excited about it. Others are like, it's good enough. I know where everything is, and they have vertical piles on their desk. So you see the scales in different ranges. I also am good at implementer, where I like to tell stories, but when it comes down to the tangible, it's going to take me 8, 10, 12 times as long. Whereas you give it to, say, like an engineer, they're going to create a model beautiful that you can picture. So with that, those are the strengths. Now, the weaknesses, they might...
Hold up. Let me...
sorry.
Yeah, let me break in just for a second here. So when it comes to... There's this thing called quiet quitting.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know this feeds into what you're saying there, because if people don't feel engaged or aware of what's going on, and then maybe they can't find their place in there, that they'll tend to isolate as well themselves from everything. I think it's a self-defense mechanism, a self-preservation mechanism. But can you talk real quick about this quiet quitting, what that means?
And that goes back to the poll, is that if they don't feel like the company's cares about them, it's like, if you're in a relationship like that, somebody doesn't care about, I don't really care about making dinner for you tonight, or I don't really feel like going out of the way or picking up the clothes or something. So if they don't care about me, I don't feel like staying after hours and putting in overtime. Hey, can you stay this weekend? No.
When I've seen
I don't feel like it. So when they feel like they're engaged, or like the company cares about them, or the company has a mission, so that quiet quitting, and I think it came about mostly because of the pandemic. People were isolated. What about all those extroverts that wanted to be engaged with people? The introverts loved it. They were going, this is great.
Yeah.
I'm indoors. I don't have
true.
to go to these stupid meetings. Oh my gosh, and interact in the water cooler and all that. And the extroverts were going nuts. And so that quiet, when they get in, so, who's quiet quitting? Is the introverts that don't want to go back to the office? Is it the extroverts are, so that's when I do these surveys and assessments, is you find out what they're good at. So don't force them, don't put a round peg into a square hole, or a square peg into a round hole.
So I feel like, I feel like a lot of that quiet quitting too, especially, the pandemic and everything, we see it a lot in corporate America. And they try their best, I feel like, to turn things around. But in corporate America, it's hard to control because you are not ultimately the one in charge. You're reporting to your Fortune 500, your CEOs, your boards. But as entrepreneurs, that's something that we have a real advantage in, I feel like, is our control of our business and the level that we're able to operate, because we have the ability to make those decisions without running them by a board of executive. How have you seen this effect come about more directly when you're working with smaller business owners?
We see everywhere I go now hiring. People are having problems trying to find good people to hire. And so they're just like, if you can fog a mirror and we can take a pulse, they're just trying to get them in there because people are kind of fed up. And so with that, what if you go one more step and you have someone take the assessment, you have your job outline specifically set up, so that they know exactly what they want. So we want somebody to do research, or we want somebody to go out and do sales. So you take the assessment, man. In Clifton Strengths, you're a woo. You're winning others over. You're great at talking to people. You're not going to put them in the back room to do filing administration and things like that. So if you can focus and get the right person in the right job, as we were talking last week, you said, what does it take to for an officer to go through the police academy? It was $100,000 for 6 to 8 months. That's pretty expensive. Imagine if that same ratio was with a small business.
Well, I feel like in a small to medium-sized business, a lot of the times, nobody likes to fire people. We all want to create jobs, not take jobs away. And we have the power to make significant change. So what would it look like instead of saying, I need to wipe this team out and hire all new people? Maybe it's just reevaluating the people you have and shifting some roles around.
That's a good point.
Well, I think going back to you being a business coach is, do they know? The first clarity of the expectations, connection to the mission or purpose of the company. Sometimes the company owner may not know where they're going. They're the leader. Mm-hmm. So if you're the lead, there was a comic strip a long time ago where you see all these people running ahead and a guy behind them. He goes, what are you doing? Well, I'm chasing them because I'm their leader. Yeah. So if you're not leading the way, how do you expect the employees to get behind you? Mm.
Yeah.
So we're about 8 minutes into this segment, to your segment there, Alan. I want to get to objections, and I think this ties in well when, if a business owner is reluctant to, I guess, maybe accept the application of the service, how do you handle those objections?
Well, I agree. I've been doing this for a long time. I understand where they're coming from. But let me ask you this question. How much does it cost to lose an employee?
Yeah, it's not only is it expensive in training time and wages, but it's also extremely frustrating to have to start over, especially as an entrepreneur. We do not like to start over from scratch if we don't have to.
And incorporating them into the culture. What culture do you have? And so if they know that this is a culture that is based on positivity, on people working together, knowing what each other's strengths are. So if you need something, they've got it right there. Their Colby is a 4483, which, I can go into more detail, but that means that I like brainstorming. So you don't want me organizing, you don't want me to fact find. So if you come to me with brainstorming, I'm going to pull stuff out of the air that I never even thought about that. Like you said, when you were meeting with the one guy with health issues, he was bringing stuff to you that you had never thought about. He was you didn't know what you didn't know.
There's another, I'm going to switch gears just slightly because I think there's a huge implication for personal relationships, like with marriage and even like when dating, you know what I mean? Because because there has to be some matching there that goes, I mean, I've been married almost 35 years to the same woman. We have to say that these days, right? Right. At any rate, so we understand each other because we've been through a little bit of personality, color test, stuff like the love languages, stuff like that. But when you understand each other a little bit better, you're not constantly putting your own expectations on somebody else who can't match it. To your point, like somebody likes brainstorming, or I like entrepreneur, I like being the tip of the spear. Don't make me have to do accounting stuff. It'll drive me nuts and make me very unhappy. So I think there's personal relationship implications here as well.
I see that all the way around, because you could say quiet quitting at work. That's the big term that's been going on. But what about quiet quitting in relationships, quiet quitting in marriages, where you're sitting there going, yeah, yes. That sounds great, And they left a minute ago. And you're still, you're just carrying on. But when you're actively engaged with each other, like you said, with the 5 love languages, which is another free assessment that I got on my website, is that if I'm bringing my wife gifts over and over again, yeah, this is great. And you go to a marriage counselor, but he doesn't love me. What are you talking about? I'm bringing you all these gifts. Yep. Yeah, but you don't spend quality time with me. You're all you volunteer everywhere else. Or, can you just do the dishes in the dishwasher?
So acts of service
acts of service or accolades, giving me, appreciation. Man, you did a great job. Wow. There's a quote by Mark Twain that says, I can go for 2 months on a good compliment.
Great point.
Well, what I love about you, Alan, is I don't know if you guys can feel it. I can. You can feel your enthusiasm just
absolutely.
coming. It exudes from you in such a heavy level. Like I can imagine that coming into an organization, like you exude the same thing, so they can really see it. So if this sparks something with anybody listening, they want to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
Well, they can go to my website, the whoamianswer.com. On there is a way to email or call me. And on there is also a way to, a lot of people will not want to engage. So if they just want to take the assessments, they can do that. Now there's 4 free assessments, and then there's 4 paid assessments, the Myers-Briggs, Colby, Fascinate, and Clifton Strength. So those are paid. I can't control that. That's by those organizations. So if they want to just take the assessment and they'll get a great report back that'll tell them a lot of information, great. But if they want to take it one step further and do an evaluation, I can do that, where I can really pull it apart and find out how they can take this to a whole new level.
Awesome. Thanks, Alan. We appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.